Imagine trying to stand out on this densely packed island where over 16,000 beverage stores are fighting for the exact same customers.
It is a complete bloodbath out there, honestly.
Right. I mean, you walk down a single street in Taipei and you might pass like 5 different boba shops. It's this unforgiving, brutal red ocean market where new shops often just bleed cash and die within 3 months of opening.
Oh, absolutely. The failure rate is just staggering.
But then you have this one brand that took roughly 170,000 new Taiwan dollars back in 2001 and turned it into a 1.8 billion NTD empire. So today we are doing a deep dive into Daeyoung's, Taiwan's leading fresh fruit tea brand.
The scale of their success in such a hostile environment is genuinely staggering. I mean, to grow from that tiny seed in a town called Changhua into a global footprint of 230 stores, well, that requires way more than just a good recipe. It requires absolute strategic mastery.
Exactly. And that is exactly why we are approaching today's session a little differently for you guys listening.
Yeah.
We are treating this deep dive as a masterclass in business English.
Love this approach.
Yeah. Our mission today is to extract the high-level professional vocabulary from the Daeyoung's playbook. We want you to not only understand how they escaped a saturated market, but to walk away with the precise boardroom-level English terminology to describe these strategies in your own career.
It's really the ideal case study for this because Daeyoung's didn't survive by engaging in a race to the bottom.
Right. They didn't just slash prices.
No, not at all. They didn't try to shout louder by endlessly offering cheaper promotions. Instead, they just completely rewrote the rules of the category they were competing in.
It's like trying to stand out in a crowded stadium where everyone is shouting. You don't survive by shouting louder. You survive by starting to sing a completely different tune.
That's a perfect analogy.
So, if we are going to deconstruct how they pulled this off, we need the right language. We need to define the underlying mechanics of their pivot. So what is the foundational concept that allowed them to stop competing on price?
Well, the foundational concept here is product differentiation.
Okay, let me isolate that term for a second so we can really get the pronunciation. Product differentiation, product differentiation.
Perfect. In business strategy, product differentiation means making your offering uniquely attractive to a specific target audience. You are separating it so clearly from the competition that consumers no longer view the products as interchangeable.
And we often hear it casually tossed around to mean like, just make the packaging look different. But strategically, we are talking about a fundamental shift in the core value proposition, right?
Absolutely. I mean, early on, Daeyoung's was just another standard tea shop selling cheap daily drinks made with concentrated syrups.
Like everyone else.
Like everyone else, yeah. They achieved true product differentiation by entirely abandoning that commodity space. The founder deliberately transitioned the company into what he termed the fruit value creation industry.
Fruit value creation, I like that.
Yeah, it's powerful. They implemented this uncompromising standard, insisting on 100% fresh, seasonal Taiwanese fruit, and strictly refusing artificial concentrated juices.
So they stopped selling generic hydration and began selling a premium agricultural experience.
Exactly. Which completely changes who you were competing with.
But I mean, that introduces a massive logistical hurdle. You can't just declare to the world that you are selling premium farm fresh fruit if your entire operational back end is built to handle plastic jugs of powdered mix.
Right. The reality behind the scenes has to match the marketing.
Which brings us to the infrastructure required to actually support that promise.
And that infrastructure introduces our second core business term for today, which is supply chain.
Let me repeat that one. Supply chain. Supply chain.
So while many people think of a supply chain as just, shipping and receiving, in a strategic context, it encompasses the entire ecosystem of sourcing, producing, and delivering a product.
From the raw earth all the way to the final consumer.
Precisely. And in the case of fresh produce, that chain has to be incredibly fast and tightly controlled. Daeyoung's recognized that to protect their product differentiation, they needed to build an unassailable competitive moat.
So they didn't just outsource it.
No, they didn't just contract third-party logistics companies or buy from wholesale middlemen. They poured hundreds of millions of NTD directly into building 3 massive proprietary logistics centers.
Wow, 3 of them.
Yeah, and this vertically integrated supply chain guarantees one-day delivery directly from 1,600 local farmers straight to their retail stores.
1,600 farmers, that is a massive network.
It is. The fruit is picked, subjected to rigorous pesticide testing, and distributed before the sun even comes up.
Okay, so they own the entire life cycle of the product. They have the premium product, and they have the unassailable supply chain to move it. But if they are still relying on traditional marketing, like if they are paying a massive tax to tech giants just to tell customers about a new seasonal drink, their profit margins are still going to evaporate, right? How did they solve the marketing overhead?
They solved it by mastering our third core concept for this session, which is private domain traffic.
Private domain traffic. Private domain traffic. This is such a critical concept for anyone operating in today's digital landscape.
It really is. In the digital economy, private domain traffic refers to the audience or consumer base a brand can reach directly and proactively.
Without paying a toll to third-party platforms like Facebook or Google or, food delivery algorithms.
Exactly. De-Young's understood that renting attention from social media platforms was just a fundamentally flawed, long-term economic model. So to bypass this, they built their own proprietary digital ecosystem.
Meaning their own app.
Right. Today, they boast an astonishing 1.7 million members on their own app. And because they own that channel, every push notification, every personalized offer, and every seasonal announcement costs them virtually nothing to send.
Which is huge for margins.
Huge. As a direct result, that private domain traffic now drives between 38 and 40% of their entire global revenue.
Let me make sure we draw a clear distinction here for the listeners. When we talk about private domain traffic, are we just talking about like a digital spin on a traditional VIP punch card?
Well, no, it's much more dynamic than that.
Because a punch card might get a customer a free drink, but the brand still has zero proactive reach. If the customer doesn't walk past the store, the brand is essentially invisible.
And that is the crucial difference. Private domain traffic is entirely about data ownership and direct access. Because De-Young's owns the app infrastructure, they possess granular data on every single user.
So they know exactly what you like.
They know if you prefer a mango smoothie on a Friday afternoon or a hot citrus tea on a Monday morning. They can trigger a highly personalized, targeted notification straight to your lock screen right when you are most likely to buy.
Wow, so it shifts the ultimate power from the Silicon Valley tech giants back into the hands of the retail brand.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have the vocabulary down, product differentiation, supply chain, and private domain traffic. Let's put these concepts into action and analyze how De-Young's uses them to justify their pricing strategy. Because eventually, in any business case, we have to talk about the money.
Always. The pricing strategy is where we see the actual return on investment for all this infrastructure. De-Young's actively targets a very specific demographic, which is middle to high income female consumers, generally aged 25 to 45.
Okay, and what are they charging this demographic?
To position themselves for this audience, their drinks are priced between 50 and 110 NTD. To contextualize that for you, it is 30 to 50% more expensive than massive established market leaders like 50 Lawn.
Wait, 50 Len holds what, a dominant 24.3% market share?
Yes, them or Qingshen. They are significantly more expensive than those giants.
I have to push back on this strategy, though. In a beverage market that is heavily sustained by students and young professionals who are hypersensitive to price, isn't charging a premium for a daily beverage essentially a fast track to bankruptcy? I mean, there is literally a cheaper option on every single street corner.
And if they were merely selling sugar water, it would absolutely be a death sentence. But this is exactly why true product differentiation is so vital. They are not competing for the student looking for cheap calories.
Right. They opted out of that race entirely.
They did. That premium price point is rigorously justified by highly visible third-party verified standards. For example, De-Young's achieved the Double Clean label.
The Double Clean label.
Yeah, it's a profoundly strict, independent certification that proves their products contain absolutely zero chemical additives.
Okay, so they aren't just relying on clever marketing copy. They have institutional proof that the product is pure.
Exactly. And take that a step further with their dairy sourcing. They don't buy bulk commercial milk. They partnered specifically with Su Qingliang Fresh Milk, which is a specialized supplier that holds an elite animal welfare label.
Oh, wow, that's not easy to get.
No, earning that label requires passing dozens of exhaustive metrics regarding pasture time, diet, and veterinary care for the cows.
Which speaks directly to the psychology of that 25 to 45-year-old female demographic. That consumer is highly educated, she is health conscious, and she scrutinizes her diet.
Right, so she is more than happy to pay a premium. because she isn't just buying a beverage to quench her thirst. She's buying peace of mind. She's buying health, transparency, and a tangible ESG, environmental, social, and governance commitment.
So she knows exactly what is going into her body, and she feels ethically aligned with the brand's farming practices.
De Young's effectively removed their drinks from the junk food category and elevated them into the daily wellness category.
That makes perfect sense. They aren't competing with the corner tea shop because they are playing an entirely different game. But setting that standard brings up a massive operational wall, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Because hand-squeezing perfectly ripe, chemical-free fruit is highly manageable if you run a single boutique cafe. But attempting to scale that standard across 230 global locations, fruit is inconsistent, it bruises, it rots.
It's a logistical nightmare.
Right. The variance in quality from one store to another should theoretically just destroy the brand.
And it is the exact nightmare that forces almost every other competitor to rely on heat-pasteurized, artificially stabilized syrups. But De Young's refused to compromise their differentiation.
So how did they solve it?
Instead of syrups, they utilized a major technological breakthrough known as HPP, or high-pressure processing cold high-pressure technology.
HPP. I was actually reading up on the physics of HPP before we started, and the visual of what is happening inside these machines is staggering. According to the notes, 6,000 atmospheres of pressure is the equivalent of balancing 4 5-ton elephants on a single coin.
It is wild to think about.
It's literally more physical pressure than you would experience at the absolute bottom of the Mariana Trench.
The sheer force is incomprehensible, but the business application of that force is what's truly brilliant. See, traditional heat pasteurization basically boils the juice to make it shelf-stable.
Which ruins it, basically.
Right. The problem is that heat completely alters the molecular structure of the sugars. It caramelizes them, destroys the delicate flavor profile of the fresh fruit, and denatures the vitamins.
So HPP entirely eliminates heat from the equation.
Yes. By applying that crushing oceanic pressure through water, it physically obliterates the cell walls of bacteria, effectively sterilizing the juice.
But because there is no heat, the fruit remains raw, the vitamins are intact, and the flavor profile is preserved. You get the extended shelf life of a heavily processed syrup, but it tastes like it was squeezed 3 seconds ago.
Exactly. And this technological leap did far more than just solve a supply chain headache for their own stores. It generated what strategists call a second growth curve.
A second growth curve. I love that term.
Yeah, by creating a premium, raw fruit juice that could survive complex transportation logistics without spoiling, De Young suddenly had a product they could sell outside of their own retail footprint.
So they aggressively pivoted from a strictly B2C business-to-consumer model and expanded into the B2B business-to-business market.
They turned their biggest internal vulnerability into an external revenue stream. Today, they supply these HPP cold-pressed juices to over 2,000 restaurants across Taiwan.
And we are not talking about fast food chains, right?
No, we're talking about high-end, Michelin Bib Gourmand-rated establishments that proudly serve De Young's juice because the quality meets the demanding standards of fine dining.
That is a masterstroke of vertical integration. But, as much as we were praising their physical operations, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Not at all.
When De Young's tried to apply this same dominance to the digital space, their initial foray was a spectacular disaster. I want to highlight this because it proves that even industry leaders stumble, and their recovery offers a phenomenal lesson in digital transformation.
It really is a critical lesson in understanding the limits of a business model. So back in 2019, De Young's attempted to launch a digital subscription model directly through their app.
Okay, how did that work?
The financial proposition was straightforward. A consumer pays 499 NTD upfront for the month, and in return, they get 10 premium drinks. Internally, De Young set a goal of acquiring 9,000 subscribers, which they viewed as highly conservative given their massive app user base.
On paper, that sounds like a great deal.
Yeah.
$50 a drink for premium HPP processed fruit tea. Why did it fail so badly? Did they hit the goal?
They didn't even come close. They managed to acquire roughly 1,000 subscribers before the program just completely stalled. It was a highly publicized, very expensive failure.
So why did a concept that works so beautifully for software and media fail so spectacularly in the premium beverage space?
They fundamentally misjudged consumer psychology in the retail beverage sector. A Netflix or Spotify subscription offers endless, varied utility that a consumer uses every day.
Right.
Premium fruit drinks, however, they're an occasional indulgence. Consumers generally reject being financially locked into a single beverage brand. They want the psychological freedom to try the trendy new boba shop that just opened down the street.
I've also spent some time looking at the back end of franchise operations, and I can immediately spot the hidden friction here.
Oh, the franchise pushback was massive.
Because DeYoung's operates on a franchise model, right? When a customer prepays that 499 NTD, the corporate headquarters collects and holds that cash. But when the customer walks into a local store to redeem their drink, the local franchisee is the one bleeding inventory, the expensive milk, the fresh fruit, and paying the labor.
You are hitting on the core operational hazard perfectly. The local owner then has to wait for corporate to reimburse them through a complex, delayed profit-sharing structure. It created immense friction and resentment among the franchisees.
They essentially tried to force a Silicon Valley software-as-a-service subscription model onto a brick-and-mortar franchise system, and the gears completely jammed.
Exactly. But the brilliance of DeYoung's isn't that they have a perfect track record. It's how rapidly they pivoted. They realized they couldn't force financial lock-in, so they completely changed their approach to generate emotional lock-in instead.
Oh, that's a great way to put it, emotional lock-in. How did they do that?
They completely dismantled their digital strategy and rebuilt it around true private domain traffic principles. First, they humanized the brand by turning the founder into a digital personality affectionately known to the app users as Boss Chew.
Boss Chew. So putting a face to the corporate name.
Yes. He began communicating directly and authentically with the members, stepping away from polished corporate speak. Then, they integrated the Ailey Smart interactive system onto their public Facebook page.
And this is where they got incredibly creative, right? Because instead of just blasting out generic discount codes to drive engagement, which is the lazy playbook everyone else uses, they tied the digital world to the physical world.
They really did. During their highly anticipated strawberry season, they launched a unique campaign. If you interacted with the brand digitally commenting, sharing, or engaging with the automated system, you didn't win a coupon. You earned a real physical strawberry plant.
A living thing in a pot of dirt.
Yes, a real plant.
Wait, how does handing someone a physical plant actually drive them onto a digital app? What was the bridge between the dirt and the software?
The bridge was utility and gamification. They tied the physical plant to a digital care guide housed exclusively within the DeYoung's app. If you wanted to know the optimal time to water your new plant, or if you wanted to claim special fertilizer packets for it, you had to scan a QR code that dropped you directly into their proprietary ecosystem.
That is ingenious. They used the public square of Facebook to hand out a physical anchor and use that anchor to invite people into their private digital house.
And it triggers a powerful psychological phenomena known as the endowment effect.
The endowment effect.
When a consumer is given a physical item to nurture and care for, they subconsciously develop an emotional attachment to it. By extension, that goodwill and loyalty transfer directly to the brand that gifted it to them. They stop viewing DeYoung's as just a transaction and start viewing them as a partner in this fun, shared experience.
And the results speak for themselves, don't they?
Oh, massively. By combining the authentic communication of Boss Chew with this gamified transition from public to private domain traffic, they saw an explosion in engagement. They boosted their core fan visitation rate from an average of 2 times a month to an unbelievable 18 times a month.
Wait, really? 18 visits a month?
18 times a month. It completely transcends casual consumption. It establishes the brand as a daily, deeply ingrained habit. And crucially, they achieved this monumental leap in frequency, not by slashing prices or discounting their premium product, but by deepening the relationship and providing interactive value.
That is incredible. Let's bring all of these threads together for you, because we have covered a massive amount of strategic ground today. We analyzed how DeYoung's escaped a ruthless 16,000-store red ocean by fundamentally redefining their product.
Through product differentiation.
Yes, they built an elite, vertically integrated supply chain directly with farmers to justify their premium pricing to a highly targeted, health-conscious demographic. They utilized cutting-edge HPP technology to scale their operations without sacrificing quality, which birthed a highly lucrative B2B revenue stream. And when their digital subscription model crashed, they didn't retreat. They cultivated a highly engaged private domain traffic ecosystem using physical anchors and emotional connection to turn casual buyers into absolute superfans.
It truly is a masterclass in strategic execution and adaptation. And as we promised at the beginning of this deep dive, we want you to walk away with a practical, high-level tool. So here is a phrase you can confidently use in your next meeting when your team is struggling with intense market competition or pressure to cut prices. Are you ready?
We're ready.
To escape a saturated market, we must leverage our supply chain to drive true product differentiation.
Let me repeat that one more time so you can really visualize dropping this insight into your next boardroom discussion. To escape a saturated market, we must leverage our supply chain to drive true product differentiation. It is authoritative. It refocuses the team on structural solutions rather than superficial marketing. And as we have clearly seen with the De Young's case study, it works in the real world.
It demands that leadership look at the actual foundation of the business, rather than just searching for a quick temporary fix.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to where we started. Remember that crowded stadium where everyone is shouting over each other, fighting for the exact same dollar? De Young's didn't just learn to sing a new song. They built an entirely new stage.
Well said.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you look at your own industry this week. If a traditional small-town Taiwanese tea shop can redefine itself as an omnichannel, high-tech fruit value creator, what hidden fruit is sitting in your own company's backyard, just waiting to be transformed into a premium offering?
That is the perfect strategic question to end on.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next one.
喜欢这种学习方式，欢迎订阅我的频道，让我们一起用下一个10分钟，把商业英文变简单。